My name is Vanessa. I am 31 years old, and I never expected to be fighting for my bedroom in the house I legally own. When my dad Walter moved in temporarily after his retirement went south, I was happy to help. Then came Jessica, his whirlwind fiancée. Their pregnancy announcement was one thing, but demanding I give up my master bedroom for their nursery crossed every line. The sheer audacity of Jessica pointing to my door saying, "We need this room now," forced me to remind them both of one critical fact: this is my house. Drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to deal with entitled family members trying to take what is rightfully yours. The house in question is not just any house. It is a gorgeous 3-bedroom colonial that my grandmother left to me 5 years ago. With its oak floors, crown molding, and a kitchen that would make any home chef envious, it is the kind of place that makes visitors sigh with appreciation. The master bedroom, my bedroom, has an attached bathroom and a bay window that overlooks the garden my grandmother lovingly tended for decades. Every corner of this house holds memories and meaning for me. As a graphic designer working primarily from home, I had converted the smallest bedroom into my office space. My setup was perfect. Dual monitors, an ergonomic chair, and enough natural light to keep me energized through long work sessions. My clients loved the creative work I produced in this space, and I had built a successful freelance business that allowed me to maintain the house and live comfortably. My grandmother and I had always been close. When my mother passed away when I was 12, Grandma Catherine stepped in and became my rock. She moved me into this house, raised me through my teenage years, and supported me through college. On her deathbed, she made me promise to keep the house in the family. "This house has sheltered 4 generations of strong women," she told me. "Now it is your turn to be its guardian." I took that responsibility seriously. My father, Walter, though loving in his own way, had never been particularly stable. After divorcing my stepmother Diane 2 years ago and facing an earlier-than-expected retirement from his accounting job, his finances took a serious hit. When he called asking if he could stay with me just until things settle, I did not hesitate to offer him the guest bedroom. "It will be temporary, Vanessa," he assured me. "Just until I get my retirement sorted and find a place of my own." That was 14 months ago. For the first 6 months, things went smoothly. Dad helped with household repairs, cooked occasionally, and kept to himself. He was respectful of my space and my work schedule. We developed a comfortable routine, and I enjoyed having him around. Then came Jessica. My father met her at a community center dance class 8 months ago. At 41, Jessica was charming and energetic. With her stylish blonde bob and seemingly endless collection of colorful scarves, she always looked put together. During her first few visits to the house, she complimented everything from the crown molding to the vintage light fixtures. "What a gorgeous home," she would say, running her fingers along the banister. "It has so much potential." At the time, I thought she was just being polite. Later, I would recognize that word, potential, as the first red flag. The romance between my father and Jessica progressed at lightning speed. Within 4 months, they were engaged. My brother Thomas, who lives in Seattle with his wife and kids, called me after hearing the news. "Be careful, Vanessa," he warned. I asked around about Jessica. "She has a bit of a reputation for being opportunistic. A couple of my friends know her from the country club scene." I brushed off his concerns. Dad seemed happier than he had been in years, and Jessica was pleasant enough to me. When Dad asked if Jessica could stay over sometimes, I agreed. Those occasional visits quickly became a permanent arrangement, with Jessica gradually moving her belongings into Dad's room and throughout the house. An uneasy feeling began to grow in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. Dad deserved happiness, and if Jessica made him happy, who was I to object? Still, I could not help remembering my promise to Grandma Catherine. This house meant everything to her, and now it meant everything to me. The first real family dinner with Jessica should have alerted me to what was coming. She had insisted on cooking, which seemed like a nice gesture. But when I offered to help, she shooed me out of the kitchen. "I know my way around here now," she said. "Walter and I have our system." They had been dating for barely 3 months at that point. As we sat down to eat, Jessica had placed herself at the head of the table. My grandmother's spot, and subsequently my spot for the past 5 years. "I hope you do not mind," she said when she caught me looking. "My back hurts when I sit in the other chairs." Dad beamed at her. "Jessica has been having such trouble with her back lately." Throughout dinner, Jessica dominated the conversation, frequently interrupting me and redirecting attention to herself. When I mentioned an important client project, she quickly changed the subject to the community theater production she was involved in. When I brought up potentially repainting the living room, she interjected with her own ideas for completely redecorating it. "I was thinking a coastal theme would brighten this place up," she said, gesturing broadly. "Those curtains could definitely use an update." My grandmother had sewn those curtains by hand. As Jessica continued to ingratiate herself into our home life, I tried to maintain a positive outlook. This was still my house, after all. I had welcomed my father in need, and by extension, I could accommodate his new partner. At least that is what I told myself at the time. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to the subtle ways Jessica was staking her claim. The comments about potential changes to the house. The way she referred to the guest room as our room from the very beginning. The casual suggestions about furniture arrangements that always seemed to benefit her preferred setup. But hindsight is 20/20, and at the time I was too focused on being supportive of my father to recognize the pattern forming before my eyes. The transformation happened so gradually that I almost did not notice it at first. One day, I returned from a 3-day work conference to find the living room completely rearranged. The sofa that had previously faced the fireplace now faced the television, and 2 new armchairs I had never seen before flanked the coffee table. "Do you like it?" Jessica asked, clearly proud of herself. I thought this layout made much more sense for entertaining. I stared at the unfamiliar space that had once been my comfortable living room. "Where did these chairs come from?" "Oh, those were in my storage unit. Your father and I picked them up while you were gone. That old chair of yours was so shabby and these matched the sofa much better." My grandmother's reading chair, the one she had nursed me in when I had chickenpox at 13, was nowhere to be seen. "Where is my chair?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "In the garage," my father answered, entering from the kitchen. "We did not think you would mind. You never sit in it anyway." That was not true. I sat in that chair nearly every evening with a cup of tea, but Jessica would not have known that because she and Dad were usually watching loud reality shows in the den during my quiet reading time. The kitchen became Jessica's next conquest. She began complaining about my cooking, saying the smells bothered her. She rearranged the cabinets without asking, and replaced the mismatched but beloved collection of mugs I had gathered over the years with a matching set she had brought from her apartment. "These look so much more grown up," she explained when I noticed. "Those novelty mugs were very college dorm. Do not? You think?" My morning routine became a point of contention as well. As a graphic designer, I often started work early to coordinate with East Coast clients. The sound of me showering at 6 a.m. apparently disturbed Jessica's beauty sleep. "Could you possibly shower the night before?" she asked one morning, appearing in the kitchen doorway in a silk robe. "Some of us are still trying to sleep at that ungodly hour." The final straw in the kitchen takeover came when I opened the china cabinet one Sunday afternoon to find my grandmother's hand-painted dishes replaced with Jessica's modern white set. "Where is Grandma's china?" I asked, my heart racing. Jessica barely looked up from her magazine. "I packed it away in the basement. It is so old-fashioned and we never use it. My set is dishwasher safe." That night I rescued the boxes from the basement and carefully rewashed and replaced each piece in the cabinet. The next morning, Jessica gave me a cold look over breakfast, but said nothing. A week later, I heard a crash from the dining room. When I rushed in, I found one of my grandmother's crystal candlesticks in pieces on the floor and Jessica standing over it. "Oops," she said with a shrug. "It was wobbly. You really should be more careful about where you put breakable things." The candlestick had been sitting safely on the same shelf for 20 years. Jessica's takeover extended beyond physical spaces. She began hosting dinner parties with her friends, introducing herself as the lady of the house when giving tours. Several times I overheard her on the phone complaining about me. "Yes, she is still living here," she said to someone during one such call. "I know it is awkward. Walter and I barely have any privacy." My father became increasingly distant and dismissive of my concerns. When I tried to talk to him about Jessica's behavior, he accused me of being territorial. "She is just trying to make this place feel like home," he said. "You need to be more flexible, Vanessa." Flexibility apparently meant allowing Jessica to go through my mail, which I discovered when I found her opening a bank statement addressed to me. "Just helping sort the mail," she said breezily when I confronted her. It meant finding her using my expensive face serum without asking. It meant her borrowing clothes from my closet and returning them with mysterious stains. The living room was gradually transformed into Jessica's home office, despite the fact that she only worked part-time as a real estate office administrator. Her papers and laptop occupied the coffee table most days, making it impossible for me to use the space without disturbing her work. She began making decisions about utilities and services without consulting me. One day, the internet was upgraded to a more expensive plan because Walter and I need faster speeds for streaming. The lawn service I had used for years was replaced with Jessica's cousin's company, which charged more and did less. Every attempt I made to establish boundaries was ignored or twisted. When I asked Jessica not to use my personal bath products, she told my father I was being petty and unwelcoming. When I requested that dinner parties be limited to weekends due to my work schedule, I was labeled antisocial and controlling. "This is a home, not an office building," Jessica said pointedly. "People should be able to entertain when they want." The holidays brought a new level of intrusion when Jessica invited her entire extended family for Thanksgiving dinner without consulting me. 15 people crowded into my dining room, many of whom I had never met. Jessica's mother, Clara, patted my hand condescendingly when I introduced myself as the homeowner. "How nice that Walter found such a spacious place for them to live," she said, as though I were a footnote in my own home. My best friend Heather noticed the changes during a rare visit. Jessica had taken to accidentally scheduling social events whenever my friends were supposed to come over. "What happened to your house?" Heather whispered as we escaped to my bedroom with glasses of wine. "And what happened to you? You seem so tense." I tried to explain the situation, but even to my own ears it sounded petty. Jessica had not done any one thing that was terrible enough to justify my growing resentment. It was the accumulation of 100 small boundary violations, a gradual erosion of my authority in my own home. "You need to talk to your dad," Heather advised. "Set some clear boundaries before this gets worse." I tried repeatedly to have a private conversation with my father, but Jessica seemed to have a sixth sense for when we were alone together. She would appear suddenly slipping her arm through his and steering the conversation elsewhere. "Were you two having a serious talk?" she would ask with exaggerated concern. "I hope nothing is wrong." And my father, so besotted with his new fiancée, never seemed to notice or care that I was being systematically pushed aside in my own home. The Christmas dinner should have been a joyful occasion. I had decorated the house with the ornaments my grandmother and I had collected over the years, prepared my mother's recipe for roast beef, and even bought thoughtful gifts for both Dad and Jessica despite our strained relationship. We were halfway through the main course when Jessica clinked her water glass with a spoon, drawing everyone's attention. "Walter and I have some exciting news," she announced, her face glowing. She reached for my father's hand across the table. "We are going to have a baby. I am 12 weeks along." For a moment I was genuinely happy. A half-sibling after all these years was unexpected but potentially wonderful. I smiled and offered my congratulations. "When are you due?" I asked. "June 15th, Jessica replied, "which means we have a lot to prepare in the next 6 months." Something in her tone made my happiness falter. The way she looked around the house as she said "prepare" sent a chill down my spine. "This place will need some serious baby-proofing," she continued. "And of course we will need to set up a proper nursery." My father beamed at her. "We will make everything perfect for our little one." Jessica's parents arrived the next day for an extended Christmas visit. They treated me with the distant politeness one might show a tenant, rather than the owner of the house in which they were staying. Jessica's mother, Clara, immediately began discussing nursery ideas with her daughter, their conversation peppered with phrases like, "when we renovate and once we paint." "The back bedroom gets such lovely morning light," Clara said during breakfast. "It would make a wonderful nursery." "That is my office," I pointed out. "I need it for work." Clara and Jessica exchanged looks. "Well, priorities change when a baby comes," Clara said with a dismissive wave. "You can set up a desk anywhere, really." Jessica's morning sickness became another weapon in her arsenal. Any cooking smells from my meals apparently triggered her nausea. The coffee I relied on to start my workday had to be banned from the house entirely. Even certain perfumes and cleaning products I used were deemed harmful to the baby. My father transformed into Jessica's devoted servant overnight. Nothing was too much trouble when it came to ensuring her comfort. When Jessica complained that the sound of my alarm disrupted her sleep, Dad suggested I start using a vibrating alarm under my pillow instead. "The baby needs Jessica to get proper rest," he explained, as though the fetus was somehow directly monitoring Jessica's sleep quality. In January, Jessica's sister Lauren came to visit. She was cut from the same cloth as Jessica. Attractive, entitled, and completely lacking in self-awareness. I overheard them talking in the kitchen one evening as I came downstairs for water. "So when is Vanessa moving out?" Lauren asked. "You will need her room once the baby comes." "We are working on it," Jessica replied softly. "Walter is helping her see reason." I froze on the stairs, my hand gripping the banister. They were planning to push me out of my own house. For a moment, I thought I must have misheard or misunderstood. But the evidence continued to mount. A few days later, I overheard Jessica on the phone discussing renovation plans for after we get Vanessa to leave. She began leaving baby catalogs open on the kitchen table, conveniently folded to pages featuring nursery furniture that would perfectly fit the dimensions of my bedroom. My father started making odd comments during our increasingly rare moments alone. "You know, Jessica really needs more space now that she is expecting," he said one evening. "I was thinking you could help us out by giving us more room." "What exactly do you mean?" I asked, though I was beginning to understand all too well. He shrugged uncomfortably. "Just thinking about the future. The baby will need its own room, of course. Dad, there are 3 bedrooms in this house. Your room, and my office. If the baby needs its own room, it can have the office. I can figure out another work arrangement." He nodded but did not meet my eyes. "That is one option. But Jessica thinks, well, your room would be better for the baby. It has the attached bathroom and more space." I stared at him speechless. Was he actually suggesting I give up my master bedroom in my own house for his fiancée's baby? "Where exactly would I sleep in this scenario?" I finally asked. "We thought maybe you could fix up the basement. It has that half bath already, and with a little work it could be a nice apartment for you." The basement. With its low ceilings, tiny windows, and persistent dampness, the space currently used for storage and laundry. I called my brother Thomas that night, my hands shaking as I dialed. "They want me to move to the basement," I told him after explaining the situation. "In my own house, Tom. The house Grandma left to me." "That is insane," he said firmly. "Do not give an inch, Vanessa. This is your house. Dad and his girlfriend are guests, not owners." But Jessica was already acting as though my agreement was a foregone conclusion. She began talking about the nursery when referring to my bedroom. She took over the master bathroom, moving my toiletries to the hall bathroom, without asking, and setting up her expansive collection of prenatal creams and vitamins on my vanity. "Your products were cluttering the space," she explained when I confronted her. "And the doctor says I need to take warm baths every evening for my circulation. The hall tub is too small." Her doctor apparently had a lot of opinions about Jessica's living situation, According to my father, Dr. Phillips had emphasized the need for a quiet, stress-free environment for the remainder of Jessica's pregnancy. The doctor says stress can be harmful to the baby, Dad repeated whenever I raised objections to Jessica's behavior. We need to keep things calm around here. Calm seemed to translate to Vanessa should not complain about anything ever. Any attempt to establish boundaries was met with accusations that I was endangering Jessica's pregnancy with my negativity. The situation was becoming untenable, but I still was not prepared for what happened next. It was a Sunday morning in February. I had slept in a rare luxury for me and was just getting out of bed when my bedroom door opened without a knock. Jessica walked in carrying paint swatches and a measuring tape. My father hovered awkwardly in the doorway behind her. "Good you are up," Jessica said brightly. "I wanted to get some measurements for the crib and changing table." I stared at her confused and still half asleep. "What are you talking about?" "For the nursery," she said, gesturing around my bedroom. "I am thinking a soft mint green for the walls. Gender neutral, you know. And we will need to remove that vanity to make room for the changing table." The vanity had been my grandmother's passed down from her mother. "Jessica," I said slowly, "this is my bedroom." She looked at me with an expression of exaggerated patience, as though explaining something to a child. "I know that, Vanessa. But we need to start preparing now. I am already 4 months along and there is so much to do." "But I live here. This is my room." Jessica sighed dramatically and placed a hand on her slightly rounded belly. "The baby needs a proper nursery, and this is clearly the best room in the house. It has the attached bathroom for late-night changes, the best natural light, and the most space. Your father agrees with me. Do not you, Walter?" My father shifted uncomfortably in the doorway. "Honey, it does make the most sense for the baby. Could not you just use the basement? It would really help us out." I felt as though I had stepped into an alternate reality. Were they seriously expecting me to give up my bedroom in the house that I owned and move to the unfinished basement? "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not. This is my house. This is my bedroom. I am not moving to the basement." Jessica's face hardened. "This is Walter's house too. He is your father." "No, it is not," I replied. "This house belonged to my grandmother. She left it to me, not to Dad. I own this house solely and completely." "But family helps family," Jessica insisted, her voice rising. "You are being selfish. We are having a baby. Do you expect an infant to live in the basement?" "No, I expect the baby to use the third bedroom, which is currently my office. I am willing to move my office to the basement and convert that room to a nursery." "That room is too small," Jessica cried. "The baby needs space." "The baby will be fine in a standard-sized bedroom," I said. "Millions of babies grow up in bedrooms that size." "This is ridiculous," Jessica snapped. "Your father and I are starting a family. We need this space more than you do. You are just one person." "One person who owns the house," I reminded her. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. She turned to my father. "Walter, say something. She is stressing me out." And the doctor said, "Stress is bad for the baby." My father looked pained. "Vanessa, please? Jessica is pregnant. Cannot you just be reasonable? It is not like we are asking you to leave the house entirely." "Not yet," I muttered. "What is that supposed to mean?" Jessica demanded. "It means that you have been systematically pushing me out of my own home for months. First the common areas, then my bathroom, and now my bedroom. Where does it end?" "You are being paranoid," my father said. "We just need to make some adjustments for the baby. By having me give up my master bedroom and move to an unfinished basement, that is not an adjustment, Dad. That is taking advantage." Jessica's tears turned to sobs. "I cannot deal with this stress. It is not good for the baby." She stormed out of the room, still crying. My father glared at me. "Now look what you have done. Is your bedroom really worth upsetting a pregnant woman?" I thought you would be more supportive, Vanessa. More family-oriented. This is not about the bedroom, I said quietly. This is about respect. This is my home, Dad. Jessica has been trying to take over since she moved in, and you have been letting her. That is ridiculous. She is just trying to make a comfortable home for us and the baby. At my expense? He shook his head in disappointment. I thought you would be happy about having a little brother or sister. Instead, you are being selfish and childish. Those words hit me like a physical blow. I had welcomed my father into my home when he needed help. I had accommodated his new relationship despite my misgivings. I had tolerated Jessica's increasingly entitled behavior out of respect for him. And now I was selfish for not wanting to give up my bedroom. After my father left to comfort Jessica, I sat on my bed in shock. The room that had been my sanctuary since my grandmother died. The space that held so many memories and personal touches was now being demanded as if it was a communal resource rather than my private domain. An hour later, Jessica appeared in my doorway again. Her eyes were red, but her expression was hard. This is the situation, she said coldly. Either you move to the basement or you find somewhere else to live. Walter and I need this room for our baby, and I am not going to let your selfishness endanger my pregnancy with unnecessary stress. This is my house, I repeated. You cannot demand I leave my own bedroom. It is just temporary, she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. Until we find our own place. When will that be, I asked. She shrugged. When we are ready. After the baby comes, obviously. Probably when it is a bit older. So never. They had no intention of moving out. The reality of the situation hit me with stunning clarity. Jessica planned to take over my house completely with my father's blessing. I packed an overnight bag and drove to Heather's apartment. I needed space to think, to process the incredible entitlement I had just witnessed. As I drove, my phone dinged with a text from my father. Jessica is very upset. Please apologize when you come home. I spent a sleepless night on Heather's couch, replaying the confrontation in my mind. Heather was outraged on my behalf. You need to talk to a lawyer, she advised. This is crazy. They cannot force you out of your own house. The next morning, I checked social media and felt my stomach drop. Jessica had posted photos of my bedroom with the caption, "Making room for baby." So excited to start planning the nursery number, baby on the way number, nesting time. The audacity was breathtaking. She was already claiming my space publicly as though our confrontation had never happened, as though my refusal meant nothing. It was time to take a stand. When I returned home the following evening, I found Jessica and her sister Lauren in my bedroom measuring the windows for curtains. My overnight bag was still in my hand as I stood in the doorway watching them discuss fabric swatches. What are you doing? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Jessica barely glanced at me. Oh, you are back. We thought you had decided to move to the basement. Based on what I asked incredulously, our conversation ended with me saying no. Lauren gave me a disapproving look. Jessica is pregnant. She needs to prepare the nursery. The stress you are causing is not good for the baby. That is not my bedroom anymore, Jessica added. We have decided it is the nursery now. We who is we, because I certainly did not decide that. Your father agrees with me, Jessica said smugly, 2 against 1. That is not how home ownership works, I replied. This is my house. Not yours, not Dad's. Mine. I decide who sleeps where. Jessica rolled her eyes. Do not be so dramatic. It is just a room. Then use a different one. The other rooms are not suitable, Lauren interjected. A baby needs the best space in the house. I took a deep breath, fighting for control. Please leave my bedroom. Now. Jessica looked at her sister and sighed theatrically. See what I have to deal with, so selfish. They left, but their point had been made. They were proceeding as though my consent was irrelevant, as though my ownership of the house meant nothing. I went to the bathroom to wash my face and found all my products gone. A quick search revealed they had been relocated to the basement bathroom without my permission. My favorite shampoo was missing entirely. When I confronted my father about it, he shrugged helplessly. Jessica thought it would be easier this way. Just go with it, Vanessa. Do not make a scene. A scene. They are trying to force me out of my bedroom. They are preparing for a baby, he corrected. Try to be understanding. Understanding. As if I was the unreasonable one. Over the next few days, Jessica's behavior became increasingly hostile. She left passive-aggressive notes on the refrigerator about noise levels and respecting a pregnant woman's need for rest. She complained loudly on the phone to her friends about difficult living situations while making sure I could hear. One morning, she accidentally spilled coffee on my laptop while I was working at the kitchen table. "Oops," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You really should not work in common areas. Someone could get hurt." The message was clear. No space in the house was truly mine anymore. The final straw came when I found my grandmother's antique jewelry box moved from my dresser to a cardboard box in the basement. Several of the delicate hinged compartments had been broken in the process. I confronted Jessica, immediately holding the damaged box in my hands. "Did you move this?" She glanced at it dismissively. "Oh, that old thing. Yes, I was clearing space. You should not leave valuables lying around anyway. It was on my dresser. In my bedroom. The nursery," she corrected automatically, "and I needed the dresser space for baby clothes." Something snapped inside me. This was my grandmother's. "It is over 100 years old and you broke it." "I did not break anything," she replied coolly. "It must have been already damaged. Besides, it is just an old box." My father entered the room immediately, sensing the tension. "What is going on?" "Jessica damaged Grandma Catherine's jewelry box," I said, showing him the broken compartments. He barely glanced at it. "I am sure it was an accident." "It was not an accident. She moved it without permission and broke it in the process." Jessica's hand went to her stomach, her go-to move whenever she felt threatened. "This hostility is not good for the baby, Walter. I cannot live like this." My father put his arm around her protectively. "Vanessa, that is enough. It is just a box. It can be fixed." "Just a box," I repeated incredulously. This was Grandma's prized possession. She left it to me specifically in her will, along with this house that you two seem to think you own. Jessica's eyes narrowed. "This house would be so much more peaceful without you." And there it was. The truth finally spoken aloud. My father looked uncomfortable but did not contradict her. Instead, he said, "Maybe you should take a break, Vanessa. Stay with Heather for a while until things calm down." I stared at him, this man who had raised me, who had taught me to stand up for myself now, telling me to leave my own home to make his pregnant fiancée more comfortable. "You want me to leave?" I asked quietly. "Just for a little while," he hedged. "Just until Jessica is feeling more settled. The pregnancy is hard on her." I looked from him to Jessica, who was watching me with barely concealed triumph in her eyes. Without another word, I went upstairs and packed a larger bag. This time I took my important documents, my laptop, and a few irreplaceable keepsakes. As I was leaving, I took one last look at my bedroom. Jessica had already placed a crib catalog on my bed, open to a page showing a lavish, white convertible model. At Heather's apartment that night, I broke down completely. The betrayal cut deep. Not just Jessica's entitlement, but my father's willingness to choose her comfort over my rights. "He wants me to leave my own house," I sobbed. "The house Grandma left to me. The house I have maintained and paid taxes on for 5 years. Heather hugged me tightly. "You are not going to let them get away with this, right?" I did not answer immediately. Part of me wanted to give in to avoid the conflict, to keep the peace. But a stronger part, the part that had inherited my grandmother's backbone, knew I could not let this stand. The next day, I discovered through social media that Jessica was already redecorating my room. She had posted photos showing my personal items piled in boxes in the basement, with the caption, "Getting the nursery ready for our little blessing. So grateful to have a beautiful space for baby Jensen number nesting mode, number baby prep." Heather's boyfriend Daniel, who worked as a paralegal, happened to see the post over her shoulder. "Wait, is that your room?" he asked. I nodded miserably. "And that is your house, right? The one your grandmother left you?" "Yes." He frowned. "Then what she is doing is illegal. She cannot force you out of your own property. You should check your legal rights." It had not occurred to me until that moment that there might be a legal dimension to this situation. I had been thinking of it purely as a family conflict, an emotional betrayal. But Daniel was right. There were legal issues at play. That weekend, I drove past my house and noticed Jessica's car in the driveway along with several other vehicles I did not recognize. Through the front window, I could see a group of women in the living room, gift bags piled on the coffee table. A baby shower. In my house. Without my knowledge or permission. When I checked my grandmother's china cabinet later that week, I discovered several pieces missing. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, called to ask if I was okay. "I saw them carrying furniture out of your bedroom," she explained. "Jessica told everyone she and Walter owned the place now. Said you had moved out permanently." The anger that had been building inside me for months finally crystallized into determination. This was not just about a bedroom anymore. This was about standing up for myself and honoring my grandmother's legacy. It was time to take action. You have every legal right to evict them. Sarah, a lawyer friend of Heather's, told me over coffee the following Monday. "The house is solely in your name, correct?" I nodded, pushing a copy of my grandmother's will across the table. She left it to me specifically. Dad was given her vacation cabin, which he sold years ago. Sarah reviewed the documents carefully. "This is very clear. You are the sole owner. Your father and Jessica are essentially tenants, and without a formal lease agreement, they are month-to-month tenants at will." "I do not want to evict my own father," I said miserably. "I just want my bedroom back. I want them to respect that it is my house." "Sometimes the threat of legal action is enough," Sarah advised. "We can draft a formal letter outlining your ownership and expectations. Make it clear that while they are welcome to stay in the guest room, your bedroom is off limits." I spent the next day gathering documentation, the deed to the house tax records showing I was the sole payer utility bills in my name, even photos of the home before Jessica's renovations began. My brother Thomas flew in from Seattle to help. He went to see our father while I stayed with Heather. "He is completely under her spell," Thomas reported back. "But I think I got through to him a little. I told him what Jessica was saying to the neighbors about owning the place. He seemed surprised by that. Thomas had also done some digging into Jessica's past. This is not her first rodeo, Vanessa. I talked to Walter's friend, George. Apparently, Jessica has a pattern of moving in with men and gradually taking over. Her last relationship ended when the guy's adult son threatened legal action after she tried to sell family heirlooms." "Why did not Dad's friends warn him?" I asked. Thomas shrugged. "They tried, according to George. Dad did not want to hear it. And now with the baby coming, he feels trapped." The knowledge that Jessica had done this before strengthened my resolve. This was not about a nursery for her baby. This was about control and opportunism. With Sarah's help, I prepared a formal letter outlining my ownership of the house and the conditions under which my father and Jessica could continue living there. Chief among these was vacating my bedroom immediately and returning any items they had removed. If they refuse, Sarah warned, we can proceed with a formal eviction notice, but let us hope it does not come to that. I spent hours with Heather practicing what I would say when I confronted them. How to remain calm in the face of Jessica's inevitable emotional manipulation. How to stand firm when my father tried to make me feel guilty. Remember, Heather coached, you are not the one being unreasonable here. They are trying to take your property. You have every right to defend it. The day of the confrontation, I arrived at the house with Thomas, Sarah, and Heather for support. Jessica opened the door, her eyes widening at the sight of our group. "What is this?" she asked, one hand automatically going to her now visibly pregnant belly. "We need to talk," I said firmly. "All of us." My father appeared behind her, looking wary. "Vanessa, what is going on? Who are these people?" "This is my lawyer, Sarah," I replied. "And you know Thomas and Heather. May we come in? To my house?" The emphasis on my was subtle but clear. Jessica stepped aside reluctantly. In the living room, now decorated with framed ultrasound photos and baby announcements, I presented the letter Sarah had helped me draft. "This outlines my ownership of this property and the conditions under which you can continue to live here," I explained. "The primary condition is that you vacate my bedroom immediately and return it to its original condition." Jessica snorted. "This is ridiculous. We need that room for the nursery." "You can use the third bedroom for the nursery," I replied calmly. "My office has already been moved to the basement to accommodate that." "The baby needs the master bedroom," Jessica insisted. "No," I said firmly. "The baby does not need the master bedroom. You want the master bedroom. There is a difference." My father looked between us nervously. "Vanessa, surely we can work something out. For the sake of family." "This is the workout," I replied, pointing to the letter. "You are welcome to stay in the guest room. The third bedroom can become a nursery, but my bedroom is off limits." "And if we refuse," Jessica challenged. Sarah stepped forward. "Then Miss Jensen will be forced to proceed with formal eviction proceedings. As month-to-month tenants without a lease, you would have 30 days to vacate the premises entirely." Jessica's face paled. "You would not evict your own father." "I do not want to," I admitted. "But I will not be forced out of my own bedroom in my own house either." Thomas handed our father a folder. "Here is the documentation showing Vanessa's sole ownership, Dad. Grandma left the house to her, not to both of you. Jessica has been telling the neighbors that you two own the place. That is not true." My father looked genuinely shocked as he reviewed the documents. "Jessica, have you been saying we own the house?" For once, Jessica seemed at a loss for words. I just meant we live here. As a family." "You told Mrs. Patterson that Vanessa had moved out permanently," I said. "You told your baby shower guests that this was your house now." My father turned to Jessica with a frown. "Is that true?" "They misunderstood," she said quickly. "This is all a big misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," I said quietly, "is that you thought you could push me out of my own home." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Her standard response when confronted. "Walter, are you going to let them talk to me like this? I am carrying your child?" My father looked torn. For a moment, I thought he might take her side again. Then he sighed heavily. "Vanessa is right, Jessica. This is her house. We are guests here." "Guests?" Jessica's voice rose incredulously. "I am your fiancé. We are having a baby. You said we would make a home here." "I said we would stay here until we found our own place," my father corrected. "I never said we would take over Vanessa's house." Jessica's face hardened. "So you are choosing her over me and the baby, is that it?" "That is not what this is about," my father began, but Jessica cut him off. "It is exactly what this is about," she snapped. "Either you stand up for me and our child, or I leave. Right now." It was the ultimate manipulation tactic, forcing him to choose between his daughter and his unborn child. I held my breath, waiting for him to cave as he had so many times before. Instead, he surprised me. "Jessica," he said gently, "this is Vanessa's house. She has every right to set the rules here. If you cannot accept that, then perhaps we should look for our own place sooner rather than later." Jessica stared at him in shock. "You cannot be serious." "I am. Vanessa has been more than generous letting us stay here. Taking her bedroom is going too far." "Fine," Jessica hissed. "If that is how you feel, I will go stay with Lauren. Call me when you come to your senses." She stormed upstairs, presumably to pack a bag. My father watched her go, then turned to me with tired eyes. I am sorry, Vanessa. I did not realize how far this had gone. You did not want to see it, Thomas corrected gently. Dad nodded sadly. You are right. I was so caught up in the idea of a new start. A new family. I let myself be blinded. What about the baby? I asked. The baby is real, he confirmed. But Jessica's intentions. I am beginning to see those more clearly now. Jessica reappeared with a hastily packed suitcase. I will be at Lauren's, she announced coldly. When you are ready to put your child first, you know where to find me. After she left, the house felt strangely empty despite the four of us remaining. My father seemed smaller, somehow diminished by the confrontation. I think I should stay with George for a while, he said finally. Give you some space to reclaim your home. I wanted to object to say he could stay, but the truth was, we both needed time to process what had happened. The trust between us had been badly damaged. That might be best, I agreed, just until things settle down. As Thomas helped him pack a bag, I stood in the doorway of what had been my bedroom. Jessica had already painted one wall, a mint green, and assembled a crib in the corner. My furniture had been pushed to one side, some pieces removed entirely. It would take time to restore the space, but it was mine again. That was what mattered. The days after Jessica moved out were strangely quiet. I spent the first weekend reclaiming my bedroom, stripping the mint green paint from the wall, and disassembling the crib Jessica had put together. Heather helped me move my furniture back where it belonged and restore my personal touches to the space. How does it feel? She asked as we finished making up my bed with fresh sheets. Bittersweet, I admitted. I got my room back, but I lost something with my dad. The process of healing from the betrayal was not quick or easy. There were nights I lay awake replaying Jessica's entitlement and my father's weakness in my mind. There were moments of anger so intense I had to go for long walks to calm down, but gradually the raw hurt began to fade. My father called every few days, his voice hesitant and apologetic. He was staying with his friend George, indefinitely giving me the space I had requested. Our conversations were awkward at first, limited to practical matters and surface-level pleasantries. But over time, we began to address what had happened. I failed you, he admitted during one particularly difficult call. I put Jessica's demands above your rights. I am so sorry, Vanessa. Why? I asked the question that had been burning inside me for months. Why did you let her treat me that way in my own home? He was quiet for a moment. I was afraid of being alone, he finally said. After the divorce, after the retirement, I felt like a failure. Jessica made me feel needed again. Important. I did not want to risk losing that, even when I knew she was wrong. It was not a justification, but it was an explanation. And in its raw honesty, it helped me begin to understand. 2 weeks after moving out, Jessica moved in with another man, a recently divorced doctor she had apparently been seeing on the side. The pregnancy was real, but her commitment to my father had been as false as her claims to my house. I should have seen it coming, my father said when he heard the news. Your brother tried to warn me. George tried to warn me. I just did not want to believe it. Slowly, I began restoring my grandmother's house to the warm, welcoming space it had once been. I reclaimed the kitchen, returning the mismatched mugs to their cabinet and preparing meals that filled the house with familiar, comforting smells. I rehung the curtains Jessica had taken down and returned the furniture to its original arrangement. Most precious of all, I carefully repaired my grandmother's jewelry box, gluing the broken compartments and polishing the wood until it gleamed. Placing it back on my dresser felt like a victory. Small, but significant. After a month, my father asked if he could come by to pick up the rest of his things. Would you consider letting me move back in? He asked hesitantly as he boxed up his books. Not right away, but eventually. I miss you. I miss this house. I considered his request carefully. Things would need to be different, I said finally. Clear boundaries. Respect for my space and my ownership. He nodded eagerly. Absolutely. Whatever you need. I will think about it, I promised, and I did. 3 months later, my father moved back into the guest room, not as an entitled parent expecting to be accommodated, but as a grateful guest respecting my home and my rules. We established clear guidelines about visitors, shared spaces, and privacy. Most importantly, we rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. Jessica gave birth to a baby boy in June. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sadness for the half-brother I would likely never know. My father received occasional photos from mutual friends but was not invited to be part of the child's life. Jessica had found a new family to manipulate. "Do you regret standing up to her?" Heather asked me one evening as we shared wine on the porch. I thought about the question seriously. "No," I said finally. "I regret that it had to happen at all. I regret that Dad and I lost time and trust. But I do not regret defending my home and my boundaries." The experience changed me in profound ways. I became more assertive, more confident in setting limits with others. I learned to recognize manipulation tactics and to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to say no. My grandmother had left me this house because she trusted me to be its guardian. In defending it against Jessica's entitlement, I had honored that trust. The house remained a haven, a sanctuary, a home, my home. Today, as I look around at the space I have reclaimed and the peace I have restored, I feel a deep gratitude for the difficult lessons learned. Family is important, but so are boundaries. Love matters, but so does respect. And sometimes standing your ground is the only way to protect what is truly yours. Have you ever had to stand up to entitled family members or friends who tried to take advantage of your generosity? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. How did you handle the situation, and what did you learn from the experience? Do not forget to like this video. If it resonated with you, subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories, and share with someone who might need to hear this. Message about setting boundaries. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, kindness and generosity are beautiful things, but they should never come at the expense of your own well-being and self-respect.